So it is my pleasure this afternoon to be here to acknowledge Rivera as the feature sponsor for this closing keynote address. And they have not only supported this conference as a feature sponsor, but have been very involved in the Council of 34 and the work in putting this conference together. So a big round of applause to Rivera for their contribution. And I'd like to welcome Joanne Dykeman, Vice President of Clinical Services and Quality, to come forward to introduce our closing keynote speaker.
Wow, closing keynote speaker. After a couple of just incredible days, thank you, Josie, and my honor to do just this, introduce our closing keynote speaker, Dr. Bill Thomas. Well, I think not many of you need a formal introduction to Dr. Bill Thomas, as he has preceded our work in many ways over the years, but I'm going to take a few minutes just to rekindle some of the poignant adjectives that describe this leader. So Dr. Bill Thomas is an author, an entrepreneur, musician, teacher, and I like this one, farmer. I am as well. And physician whose wide-ranging work explores the terrain of human aging. Best known for his healthcare system innovations, he is the founder of a global nonprofit, the Eden Alternative, which works to improve the care provided to older people. He is the creator of the Greenhouse, which Provider Magazine has called the pinnacle of culture change. He is also the founder of the influential multi-author blogging platform, changingaging.org. Please join me in a warm welcome, Dr. Bill Thomas.
Master of blessings, and I think it's always wise to acknowledge our teachers.
As you are my teacher, my brother.
You've done quite a remarkable thing. I got to spend some time with some of you before the talk. Wow! You guys are gonna rack it. I'm feeling very good about this. So, it's true, I've been offered the opportunity to provide a closing keynote. So it's in essence my job to prepare you for life after the conference. It's pretty easy here to feel like, yeah, we got it. We're gonna do this thing. And then tomorrow morning, the inbox calls. And you've already had 3 meetings before lunch. And the next thing you know, it's June. So how can I help prepare you for life after this conference? Knowing the program that you've had, knowing the teachers that you've had, it's not necessary for me to repeat or to discuss or reflect on their work. It stands for itself, and it's beautiful. What I want to do is give you context. The kind of context that can protect you out there. The first piece of context I want to give you has to do with why is aging the way it is? Why is conventional practice the way it is? How did it come to be this way? The answer is not simple. If you look around the world and through history, human beings have had a wide range of very complicated understandings of old age. Not just one idea, many ideas about old age. And if you study anthropology, you can find cultures that had a very revering attitude toward elders and really went to great lengths to support them. You can find cultures where older people actually held the power in society. You can find cultures where older people were left to die. A wide range. There is no one old age. Old age is what we make it. And unfortunately, in North America, we live in a shared culture that has come to regard old age as a time of decline. We've come to think benevolently of older people as broken versions of their formerly impressive selves. We've learned to pat ourselves on the back by when we offer elders food and water and medicine and call it good. In fact, the problem that lies at the root of conventional practice doesn't have anything to do with aging. The problem is adulthood. Without realizing it and without being responsible for it, we have come to live our lives inside a malignant enlargement of adulthood. If you've ever wondered why in our society people will go on and on about how busy they are, how much they have to do, and how they pretend like they're complaining, but they're really bragging. Why is this? How did this come to be? How did we come to live in a society that is hyperactive, hyper-caffeinated, hyper-materialistic? Here we are in the 21st century, and by the way, I want my flying car. When I was a kid, they told me, in the 21st century, I'd get a flying car. I still have no flying car. But here we are in the 21st century, surrounded by some amazing labor-saving technology. And I ask you, when was the last time you sat on a riverbank, studied the clouds, and wrote a poem? When? Because we live in a society that values adulthood according to productivity, according to efficiency, according to effectiveness, because we've built that society, we then hold that society up as a mirror, and the elders look at themselves in this mirror. And what do they see? Do they see a wise soul in the making? Do they see decades of accumulated life experience that all show up on their face? No. They see a person diminished. How is it that in the United States, a prosperous country, almost all of the news that's reported about aging is about how aging is going to bankrupt us, how we're going to lose everything, how aging is going to create a collapse of our society because we just can't afford it? How could that be? When you go back out there after this conference, remember, aging is your friend and your ally. Adulthood is the problem. Without going into different settings, and I got to meet people from lots of different points of view and places of service and support, let me just say, the system we've created is designed as if it was a bureaucratic institution organized and operated to ensure the efficient execution of a sequence of tasks and procedures as delineated in an interdisciplinary care plan document. That's the system that is out there, waiting for you to return. If you look at it up close, every part of that system makes sense. Well, of course you have a rule about the potato peelers. How can you not have a rule about the potato peelers? In detail, every single thing makes sense, but when you back up, it's crazy. Elders were not meant to live this way. They were not made to live this way. If you look back through history and around the world, you find that aging has always been a team sport. We were not meant to age alone. First off, it's hard to do. Living by yourself as a primate, and I think we all qualify as primates in this room. Living by yourself as a primate is something you weren't designed for. Other species, yes. Human beings, no. And yet we create a narrative that says the best old person is an old person who knows enough to segregate him or herself in a private dwelling away from the community and call it success. In the United States, I am a very vigorous critic of the language of aging in place. It's not the place that should matter, it's community. We all need the opportunity to age in community. Why? One reason, it's easier to age in community than it is to age all by yourself in a drafty house with leaky gutters. That's the smaller part of it. The bigger part is that we need you, the elders. You enrich us. You complete us. You teach us by the example of your lived experience and through hard-won wisdom, how to live. And it is extremely difficult to build a healthy human society without elders. Elders are the glue that hold us together. So you could take a problem like juvenile delinquency among teens, truancy, drug use, unintended pregnancy among young women, unintended pregnancy among young men who also happen to be part of that equation. Just saying. I always love how it's always like, yo, those girls get pregnant. Yeah, wonder how that happened. So why does this happen? Why do we have these concerns? And in large part, it's because we're living in a society that's run by adults without elder supervision. Elders have been laying a steadying hand on the shoulder of adults for a long time. Even tell you, this proves nothing, but it's a fun story from my youth. In my family, I was blessed to grow up in very close proximity with grandparents and a great-grandmother. And I was a somewhat high-spirited youth. Just saying. There may have been certain issues, and when I would get into trouble, I had, I think, admirably strict parents, but I would get into trouble and I would be, sent to my room. And not long after that, an American Motors Rambler would come pulling into the driveway. My grandfather lived probably 100 yards away, but he would drive to the house. So, and then I could only hear the voices in the kitchen underneath me. You might have had a similar experience. And he's a truck driver, is his trade. He would argue for a reduced sentence. And I'd say he had a very good record on this. And in the family, he was known, especially among the grandchildren, as the lawyer. So you would call the lawyer when you were in trouble. Now, what he was doing was not saying that I should be let off scot-free, but rather saying, my grandfather says, Billy's a good boy. Just, it's going to be okay. You don't have to be so hard on him. Think about all the children today who grow up without the lawyer. All of the children today who are subjected to the full, unmitigated force of adults and adulthood, who live under their authority 24 hours a day. And if you want to really map that, I'm guessing by the age of the people in the room that there are quite a few people here who remember a summer vacation from school where you did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And there's even a sentence in at least American English that has virtually disappeared, which is, go outside. I remember this sentence. And the second part of the sentence, which you never wanted to hear, or I'll give you something to do. Hopefully you're gone before that part of the sentence comes. So what I'm getting at is this malignant enlargement of adulthood actually affects the lives of children. They are systematized. Childhood is systematized. Childhood is made subject to rules and regulations and coaches and boundary lines and goals and leagues and lessons and recitals, all of which have their place. But this has colonized the terrain of childhood. So childhood that some people in this room recall has in many ways disappeared. It was consumed by adulthood. I'll give you a little example of the impact of this. It's not just childhood. There is a thing, an ancient thing, a wonderful thing, that has been part of humankind for as long as we know of humankind. It is a life beyond adulthood. It is elderhood. Some people have, over the years, come to me and asked me why I refer to older people as elders. And I have had to answer this question many times, and I will offer my answer to you for your consideration. Humans can easily understand how people are different according to the life stage they occupy. So is David here? Baby David? Oh, he went home. He's got to take a nap. So I met baby David earlier, and I'm freely going to tell you, he's a child. I'm calling him a child. In fact, when I met him, he was very childish. So baby David is a child because he's a human being living in childhood, right? We got that, no problem. Most of the people in this room would like or prefer to be referred to as adults. Why? because you're living in adulthood. What about the people who've outgrown adulthood? What about the people who've left adulthood behind? Who are they? Well, humanity, the history of humanity teaches us that they are elders because they're people living in elderhood. I'm an adult, I'm living in adulthood. If I'm so lucky, someday I'll get to be an elder living in elderhood. How sweet would that be? Love it. Now, one of the reasons why, in America at least, older people sometimes balk at this language of elders is that the word elder is terrifyingly close to the word elderly. Now, I just want to say, the word elderly has, I have removed it from my vocabulary, and I can tell you why. Actually taking guidance from my wife Jude, she made me stop and think about the word elderly, and she asked me, what does it mean? And when I confronted that, I realized that the word elderly is a slur. It is a condensed, rock-hard ball of negative stereotypes without a single redeeming feature. The word elderly takes a human being and reduces that person to a stereotype. So, even though I used to use the word freely, and in fact, I think if you look in the book Life Worth Living, the word is in that book. I was using it because I was accustomed to it. I no longer use that word now because I place that word on par with slurs associated with gender and religion and race. And I don't use those words either. So I'm interested, and what really gets me excited is the creation of a new elderhood. An elderhood stationed in such a way that it can create a restraining force on adults and adulthood. An elderhood that can ultimately come to the rescue of the young and return to them their rightful inheritance of a summer of doing nothing. To help understand this, I want to give you a little picture that helps me clarify these relationships. I want to talk about something might seem kind of mundane, but talk about baking cookies with children. And I want to compare and contrast how elders bake cookies with children and how adults bake cookies with children. The adults start off with a lecture about cleaning up as you go. And then make a little math lesson out of how much sugar goes in the cookies. And the adult is watching the time and trying to make sure that you get it all done and get the cookies on the sheet and in the oven at 350 degrees in time to get the kids upstairs and get them bathed and ready for bed, and come downstairs and pull the racks out and take the little spatula thing and put them on the cooling off racks and run back upstairs and read a bedtime story and come back downstairs and take a plastic Ziploc bag and open it up and put the cookies inside and close the Ziploc and take a non-erasable marker and write on the bag and put it in the backpack and put it by the door so you're ready to go in the morning. You might have baked cookies like that. Elders bake cookies with children a little differently. You think it needs more sugar? Put it in. cookie that's the most beautiful cookie I've never seen a cookie like that. Beautiful. Looks like Alaska. And then later, when they come out and they're a little bit burned, Grandma says, "Don't worry, I love the burned ones." Turns out elderhood has a lot to teach us. It turns out elderhood is valuable. It turns out that your work is not just sacred. And by sacred, I mean caring for the most beautiful part of us. You're not just doing something that no other creature on earth can do. You are also the last best hope we have for bringing a new elderhood into being. An elderhood that's worthy of us. An elderhood that is able to answer the challenges of our time. If you've had the opportunity to listen to Barry Barkin and to hear about the Elders Guild, you can see the potential. You can feel the importance. I'm going to return to tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, I want you to do me one small favor. When you walk in, wherever you're going to be, the next time you walk into the place where you have some responsibility, I'm asking you not to say, "We're going to change this system." That's not good enough. It will change right back. Let me assure you. I need you to walk in to that place and say, from this day forward, we tell ourselves a new story about who we are. I remember early in my career, I asked a woman I respect, and I still respect, but I asked her, "Why are we here? What are we doing?" I was working in a nursing home at the time. And she said to me, "We're here to help older people compensate for their losses." And as a physician, okay, that I understand that. I can understand that. But as I went along, I realized she was wrong. That creating a system that helps older people compensate for their losses makes everything worse. In the United States, I'm sometimes asked, what do you think we should do to have better nursing homes? Two-word answer, abolish them. So, south of the border, I am an abolitionist. And who knows, someday I may be on the Underground Railroad up here. Could be, I show up, yeah. They're after me. That could happen. I would like to abolish nursing homes. I'd like to abolish all forms of institutionalization of elders. Unfortunately, it's been my experience in the United States to see elders in adult day service programs were thoroughly institutionalized. Some of you might have seen the same thing. My medical practice for many years, we did adult protective, we call them adult protective investigations at home, where somebody would call in and we would send myself or one of the nurse practitioners would go and look at the situation. And I saw lots of elders living at home who were institutionalized. Thank you. By the way, I just want to say, that was a beautiful piece of person-centered care. Beautiful. The Japanese tea ceremony has nothing on this. Hearing, having empathy, responding in the moment, that is person-centeredness. Now, I'm going to build on this if you don't mind, because the temptation we all face tomorrow morning is saying, gosh darn right, glass of water to speaker after 18 minutes every time, and here's your check sheet. Got to fill that out. Gone. If you systematize this, it disappears. It is no longer an authentic act of genuine human caring, and it becomes the execution of a task or a procedure. This is the thing I came here to tell you. Listen to me. Your job is to make a place where love matters. Your job is to create an environment where the people who work with you have a work that is as big and beautiful and loving as they are. Many of you are currently surrounded with great, big, beautiful people who've been stuffed into tiny little jobs. I wish that answering the needs of the moment was as simple as getting a dog for the nursing home. Trust me, I wish it. It would be so much easier, so much less taxing, so much more direct. But that's not how it is. People say to me, how, and it seems appropriate to this moment, how do we get started? How do I get started? What do we do tomorrow morning? What do we do? The first thing you do is you look inside yourself. What do you really believe about these older people who are all around you? What do you believe about them? I know you like them. I get it. There are people, probably knowing the crowd, probably people in this room, who rescue injured wildlife and nurse them back to health. I know you're out there. Unfortunately, our system adopts the same metaphor. These poor broken people. Don't you love them? That nice little old lady, she's got so many problems, but we're here. Wrong, wrong, wrong. She's a teacher, and you are a student. And you've been missing class. Thank you. You've been missing class. You've not been taking notes. If you can think about the frailest person living with the greatest amount of frailty, the person living with the greatest amount of cognitive impairment, the person living with the greatest amount of physical illness. Think about that person for a moment. In my mind, it's easy, because I know lots of people who can't talk and can't feed themselves and can't roll over in bed. I just happen to know a lot of people like that. If I'm making this case for this big, beautiful elderhood, where does that person fit? I've made this case, I've told you about my grandfather, this case for intergenerational reciprocity where elders stand for young people. Where does that very frail person who cannot speak, where does that person fit? Isn't it true that that person really is just a broken human being? And I go back to, you may not even remember this, but a conversation I had with Barry Barkin a very long time ago about charity and Maimonides, and about the act of generosity and charity, and what is the greatest of all charity? And at the lowest level, I'm simplifying, there's, as always, 8 stages, so I'm going to skip over some of them, but the lowest level of charity is doing something kind for someone who knows that you did it and can say thank you. Sorry, lame. Higher on that is doing something kind for someone who doesn't know who did it. You know what I mean? Like, and I know some of you do this sort of thing. You will do a kindness for another person in an anonymous way and never take credit for it because I know you. The highest level of charity is to give to another who's unable to acknowledge the gift, who cannot return to you any favor or any benefit. And when you think about it this way, every time a personal care assistant walks behind a curtain and tends to the very intimate needs of a person who cannot return anything, that person is practicing the highest form of compassion. What we find in the lives of very frail elders are the greatest teachers among us. People who are actually offering their entire body and soul to us in just the slightest chance that we might learn what it means to truly give to another human being. And that if we learn that lesson, that we might practice it more widely. That we may rise to their level. We may become more like them. That is the greatest thing we can hope for. So this afternoon, after we finish, I'm going to go get on an airplane and I'm going back home. And tomorrow I'm going to be at a dress rehearsal for a nonfiction theater event that I have created that'll be touring the United States. Unfortunately not Canada, touring the United States this spring. It's called Second Wind. And I believe that's the name of this talk. See, I worked it in. Second Wind. The Second Wind, the theater experience, and I wrote a book about it as well, but the theater experience is really designed to help people imagine, adults imagine their life differently. One thing that I know a lot of you realize is that if you work in our field or with elders, you look around the room and you see a bunch of elders in the making. And I don't know how many of you have practiced this, but it's a very fun thing that I've done a lot over the years, which is looking at a person and imagining their 85-year-old self. It's actually not too hard to do. And I find it very useful to remember I'm just an embryonic elder. I'm a not very well-informed elder in the making. And that if I have the blessing of more time to live, I might yet become an elder. So I'm actually touring the United States, performing a 2-act show that's designed to help adults think about their next step in their life. And here's where I want to tie this together for you. I've talked about children, I've talked about elders. I have about 10 minutes left with you. Now I'm going to talk about you. Got some advice for you. Grow up. Now, adults are not used to hearing that. We're supposed to already be grown up. We're pre-grown up. But viewed from the perspective of elderhood, I'm not grown up and you're not grown up. Well, there are some elders here whom I bow to, but most of us, adults, are not grown up. And we find how humor, in so many ways, twists this. And some people will say, oh, yes, I'm still a child at heart. No, you're not. You left childhood behind a long time ago, and you're really comfortable with that, or you wouldn't be doing what you're doing right now. However, every morning you wake up one day older, and you wake up one day closer to the end of adulthood. You wake up one day closer to your own elderhood. One of the things that I use to soothe my own stormy nature is in a situation that I find myself in where I'm upset. I often reflect on my 85-year-old self, if there gets to be such a thing. And what would my 85-year-old self say to me if my 85-year-old self was standing here right now? First off, my 85-year-old self would laugh at me for taking it all so seriously. Why are you so upset? You're not even going to remember this 5 years from now. Totally not going to remember it. And you're all upset. Would you settle down, please? That's my 85-year-old self. So I think, okay, yes, I'll settle down. Then I think, how can I live more like an elder right now? How can I be more elderish? Like David the baby was being totally childish. So cute! I spend a lot of time acting in adultish ways, which is fine, but how do I act more elderish? How do I become more elderish? How do I actually wake up every morning thinking I'm getting closer to the old person I was meant to be? How do I do that? And I know, by the way, I have to say, I see a really nice distribution of ages in the room, which I think is delightful. The young people in the room, some of you appear to be in your 20s anyway. I say to you, human aging begins the day you turn 28. So some of you have a couple of years of not aging left. Then you're going to spend almost the entire rest of your life aging. You might as well get good at it. So I'm going to leave you with 3 ideas that are for you personally. I'm not talking about long-term care and aging and I'm talking about you. Here's what the elders have taught me over the years. 3 things, pretty simple. First, slow down. Would you please slow down? Would you take some time to enjoy this life? You get one shot. Slow down. Speed kills. And it's not just the lost opportunities. you don't get to see what's happening around you if you're moving too fast. Slow down. One little tiny secret that I've stolen from the elders is, for me, is to, sounds a little weird, and my dear Jude, who was raised in the Catholic faith, does not approve. However, don't do things you don't want to do. If you're doing things you don't want to do, that's a sign that you're making a mistake. You should spend your time doing things you want to do. Doesn't mean you don't do hard work. It doesn't mean you don't finish your dissertation. It doesn't mean you don't take out the garbage. But when you find yourself getting into the car at the end of a day and taking hold of the steering wheel and going like this and wondering why, that's a sign you're doing it wrong. It has been a blessing in my life that I've been able to jump out of bed in the morning very excited about my day because I get to do things I want to do. Some of those things are hard, some things are very unpleasant, but they're things I want to do. So note the distinction. I'm not saying don't do anything or only eat dessert. Hello. Might be an idea. How about eat dessert first and see if you have room for dinner? So if I have a advice for you, it's slow down, go beneath the surface. There's a whole universe of experience waiting for you that elders actually know quite a bit about that you don't, because it's hidden from you. You focus on the ephemera and on the floating shiny objects on top, and too often you miss the deeper parts. Last thing, be connected. When I was talking to folks before we started, I mentioned a couple of people here that the great thing about this meeting and about this event is that you now know you are not alone. You are connected. You belong to each other. If you are serious about what you're talking about, there will be many hard days ahead of you. Many great frustrations, many great griefs, many losses, many reversals, many failures. Now, I should be selling cars, don't you think? Buy this car, it's definitely going to break down. But I say this because, that's life. And if you dare to do great things, you better expect to fail a lot of the time. My career, such as it is, has much more failure in it than success. Thank heavens you didn't read a list of my failures. We wouldn't even be on stage yet. So I've failed at lots of things. And what has sustained me is fellowship, friendship, connectedness, belonging. Those things have sustained me through very difficult times. And you now, after today, you have each other. I am begging you not to let this flickering light go out. Keep it alive. Stay connected to each other. You are all elders in the making, and you are all vital to creating a future where we all enjoy the benefits of a new age. Thank you very much.
Go Bill!
inspiration. I love this concept of having to outgrow adulthood into elderhood. Isn't that a wonderful concept and something to think about as we all go down this journey? And I also love the concept and the closing message there of now we know we're not alone. We are all connected. And we started out talking about 3 people talking over a few meetings that turned into the Council of 34 that moved this event to being. And now we have a tribe of 412 in this room, all connected and moving forward. And I really would like to close this conference by saying a few thank yous, and starting with this Council of 34. So would all of you who are co-chairs of the various planning committees for this conference please stand up and be acknowledged, and thank you so much for all of your work, chairs and co-chairs of the conference planning committees, the logistics committee, communications committee, program committee. Thank you so much for all that you did. Now, stay standing, and all of the other members of the committees, please stand up and accept our thanks for the work that you've done. So all of the members of the Council of 34 who are here today, thank you so very much for all that you've done. The volunteers, there are over 50 volunteers here today. Everyone who was just standing, plus all the other people who have volunteered their time, please stand up and be recognized. Thank you. And last but absolutely not least, I want to call out specifically Hillary Dunn. Where's Hillary?
Yay! Yay!
Hillary, come on up to the front.
Good job.
Hillary was absolutely the glue. She sat on every committee. She did the work in between committees in terms of keeping us informed along the way. She really attended to every detail, and we really are truly grateful for everything that you've done, Hillary. Thanks so very much. Just a couple of quick announcements. We are going to be sending out an evaluation form tomorrow by email, so please look for that in your inbox and respond honestly after you've had 24 hours of reflection, and let us know what you've liked about the conference, what we might do differently next time. And we truly are optimistic, and I'm going to say almost definitive that there will be a second annual Changing the Culture of Aging conference. I can't tell you when it will be, who the host organization will be. I can tell you there's enough energy in this room that we will move this forward and begin the dialogue to create a network that will move this, that will continue this movement that we have really accelerated in the last couple of days. So thanks a lot, everyone.